Happy Friday, Miami. This is Peter Zalewski. I'm a condo consultant. I'm also the founder of Miami Condo Investing Club. You are tuning in live for Buy, Sell, Hold Miami, a real estate podcast from a local perspective about the Miami and South Florida real estate market. I'm joined by my co-host and the moderator of the discussion, Daniel Hernandez. Daniel is a real estate professional, works over at Compass Real Estate. He's over in Coconut Grove. He focuses on single-family houses as well as condos. Daniel, there is the baton. Let's run.
I got it. What's up, Peter? Happy Friday. Welcome. This is episode number 2020. It is also, I'd like to point out, my grandfather's 97th birthday.
Well done. Good DNA.
97.
Well done.
If I could only be so lucky. For those of you who haven't joined us today, as Peter said, this is Buy, Sell, Hold Miami. What we are is a 1-hour real estate talk show. If somebody sent you this link, thank your friend for sending them. But we got you guys here for 60 minutes. And what do we do on this show? So throughout the week, Peter and I, we bash articles back and forth, and we come up with 5. And so with those 5, we allocate about 7 minutes to each one. And at the end of each topic, we're either going to buy, sell, or hold. Because we don't know, because we're adults and we can change our minds. We can agree, we can disagree. But with that, let's jump right into it. Hey, Peter, you're a big data guy, right? Big data guy. And so
data.
First Friday of every month, big report comes out from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Well, if you've been watching anything, really, you probably know that there was a government shutdown at the end of the month, September 30th, just a few days ago. And part of that shutdown is no report, no labor report from the BLS. Despite that, because that's a public market report. So that's a report that gets published on the first Friday of every month, I think at around 8:30, 9:30 Eastern time. And that's data that folks use to, determine interest rates, which are very relevant for our industry. But in lieu of those numbers, there's also private market data, ADP, some other benchmarking HR analytics firms. And if you look at that data, historically, it kind of correlates to the BLS data. And Peter, it doesn't look great, does it?
It does not look great. Keep in mind, the Federal Reserve, this is the Central Bank of the United States. This is run by Jerome Powell. From this point forward, I would call him Old Man Powell, as anybody who's watched this podcast knows. So Old Man Powell, because he runs the Federal Reserve, the Central Bank of the United States, and it has 12 regional banks set up around Miami, is a branch under Atlanta, which reports ultimately to Washington for anybody keeping track at home. So Old Man Powell and the Federal Reserve, they have a dual mandate. One is to make sure they have maximum employment. The other one is to keep inflation under 2%. Right now, neither's going in the right direction. And today, numbers are supposed to be released by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which, by the way, in August, the head of it was fired simply because the numbers came out at 8:30 in the morning. President Donald Trump did not like the numbers, so he fired her. He blew her up by 3 o'clock that afternoon. So the replacement, the temporary who's in place, was supposed to be releasing numbers, but we get a government shutdown. Therefore, numbers aren't coming out. So if you were Old Man Powell from the Federal Reserve, how are you going to make a decision about how to go forward on the interest rates if you only have information on one of the sectors, which is inflation? And by the way, that'll be coming out in 2 weeks. So if the
Open Market Committee meets in 2 weeks.
Meets in 2 weeks. So if the central bank cannot get in, they haven't got information on the jobs market, which is what they rely on. Remember, dual mandate. One is jobs, right. The other one's inflation. So they don't have the jobs number. Yep, for us, for October. And what happens if the government's still shut down come the next Federal Open Markets Committee, which is where the people vote and decide, do you raise rates, do you keep them steady, or do you reduce them? Now, suddenly, you're basically stabbing in the dark, and that's where we stand today as we enter the fourth quarter of 2020.
So what would you do, Peter, if you had no extra data? Do you just not change interest rates?
Well, Wall Street is expecting 2 more rate cuts, the meeting in October in 2 weeks, and then a meeting in December. There's no meeting in November because we get in the holiday process. We have Thanksgiving. If you're watching this abroad, it's typically the last Thursday of the month of November.
Thursday.
Therefore, Third Thursday. There you go. So we're not going to have a November meeting, but in theory, Wall Street expects interest rate cut probably 25 basis points in this month in October, and another 25 when we get into December. But keep in mind, a recent addition to the Federal Reserve, he actually wants 5 more rate cuts. But if it's me, if I'm old man Powell, if I'm old man Zalewski, I'm not doing a thing.
You are old man Zalewski.
I'm not doing a thing if I don't have information.
Well, you don't have the data. What do you're operating on expectation? No.
Yeah, but I might want to appease someone who
appease who? You think old man Powell's trying to appease anybody? He's out of the job in May.
But if somebody's up my ass threatening to fire me and taking a look at some kind of remodeling that I'm doing at these old buildings and try to bring them up to par and have them represent really what the Federal Reserve and the Central Bank of the United States is supposed to be, maybe I would bend the knee. If it were me, I wouldn't do it. I keep everything steady. You don't give me more information, I don't give you an answer. So I'm status quo unless I get more information. Because remember, they're data dependent. The Federal Reserve is data dependent. We hear it over and over and over, data dependent. You don't have the data. How are you going to make a decision?
No, you got to keep the status quo. Don't pull the lever. I mean, you're relying on quasi-reliable private market data. I mean, wow, the administration would love that. Just relying on private. We just privatize all the data sources.
And it's so true. Well, you mentioned the
unemployment rate. The economy is doing great. We don't even have BLS, and look, everyone's buying houses. Which,
I don't think by the way, inflation either. There's no inflation.
No. No, go to the supermarket. Soybeans. Yeah, for a different podcast, but I'm sure you read about that. But if we remember last month when they met, when the open market committee met and gave us a 25 basis point dip, pulled the lever, what happened to interest rates? They went up.
Mortgage rates went up the day before Jerome Powell cut rates, which is 17%.
So the market anticipated mortgage rates took a dip, then he announced it, and the 30-year fix went up. So,
but why did they go up? But they went up because of the
10-year Treasury yield.
Well, yeah, but Jerome Powell was focused on inflation, getting it down to 2%. We got as low as 2.3%. And then now we're north of 2.9%. Jeffrey Gundlach, who's a bond trader, they call him the bond king. He's anticipating we're going to end the year at 3.3%. And the Fed is focused on inflation because we all remember during the pandemic, 9.1% was the high on the inflation rate. So old man Powell likes to focus on one thing at a time. He couldn't get inflation under control. And why did he pivot? Because he's got some shockingly bad news coming on the job market side in terms of growth. Therefore, he said, listen, I'm not all done with this, but let me go ahead and switch over here. And that's what spooked, I would argue, the 10-year Treasury. And that's why mortgage rates are actually higher today than they were before the rate cut. And they're coming in, by the way, I'm looking at mortgage Mortgage News Daily, 6.34%.
6.34. I was going to say 6.38. But explain something to me and to our loyal viewers. So are we at the precipice of a stagflation scenario?
Well, stagflation is basically you can't get a job and everything costs more.
Well, so Jerome Powell said it. I mean, it's not. Well, if Jerome Powell said it, I guess it's on the record and it does make it official. But he said something. We have a low hiring, low firing environment. And so I looked into this. What does that mean? So it's labor hoarding, meaning that it's a certain amount of cautiousness in the economy. People aren't firing their employees because, well, it could all turn around right now. And then it also costs money to rehire and train these people. So it's like, we're not going to do mass layoffs. So we're not in a recession, but also there's a cooling demand for workers. So we're not hiring at a rapid clip if we're going up, which, by the way, yesterday, Dow Jones, all-time high, despite everything going on.
Well, Wall Street loves when you eliminate employees. If you eliminate employees, in theory, if productivity goes up, you got a higher profit margin. That's assuming people are buying stuff. I go to the grocery store.
But are people buying stuff?
Well, if you look at some of the...
If you look at consumer credit card debt, yeah, sure.
But repos are going up. FICO scores are coming down. There's a lot of troubling. I mean, an economist was talking yesterday on CNBC. He described the current state of the economy as a K. So the upper half think of a capital K.
Okay.
So it'd be, the upper half is doing extremely well, and the lower half is basically in the gutter, and that's where we're going. So it's diverging.
We're diverging.
Yeah. So we're diverging, and this is it's a very challenging time because there's a lot more people with less than there is people with more, and that's ultimately what we're up against. And if you're one of these fat cats who's in the upper 50%, you're dependent upon the people down at the bottom basically to keep your engine going. And if these people aren't buying stuff, or if they're using, it used to be called layaway. What's it called now? Like Clara and some of these companies.
But no, buy now, pay later.
Buy now, pay later. Yeah. Well, increasingly you're hearing about people buying the smallest things on this buy now, pay later.
Oh, you can do anything with buy now, pay later now. It used to be just like vacations and big purchases, and now I think you can put your groceries on buy now, pay later, BNPL.
That's right. So that's kind of the state, and everybody's stuck. We don't know where we're going to go because you don't know what the latest is going to be on the tariffs. You don't know what's going to happen with the economy. You don't know if the government is going to reopen. You don't know if you're one of those supposed 750,000 people who work for the federal government who might actually lose their job permanently, which is what some of the claims are coming out talking about. So, there's so much uncertainty, and typically in times of uncertainty, what do? You sit on the sidelines and you wait. You wait for some sort of clear visibility. Think of Miami. Think of the Miami River and Biscayne Bay, right there where they meet. So on the south side, you're going to have Brickell Key. As you move a little bit inland, you're going to have Miami Circle. You have Icon Brickell. The other side, you're going to have One Miami. You have the Hotel Intercontinental. You have the Aston Martin. So right there where the bay's meeting the river, the bay is salt. The river is freshwater, sweet water, if you will. When those two come together, if you're in the water snorkeling or diving, you can't see anything. It's brackish. And that's really where we are right now. We're stuck right there. Nobody has visibility. When you don't have visibility, you pop your head up and you say, okay, let me sit on the side and let it clear up a little bit. That's what I would argue.
So buy, sell, hold on no labor data, no problem.
I would be a sell because I think it's a major problem.
It's a big problem. No data.
No data. I mean, you're a pilot. You're flying without radar, and you're basing it on what you can see in front of you. And
a bad analogy. You saw what happened at LaGuardia Wednesday night. They could see everything, and they just.
That's true. But that's operator error.
I don't know. That's for another day. I tend to agree with you. I'm selling. No data is bad. You brought up FICO scores, though, Peter. So everybody who's watching, anybody who's ever taken out a loan for anything, we know a lot of people here aren't homeowners or renters, but even if you're not taking out a mortgage, if you've leased a car, if you have a credit card, you can go onto your app and you can see your FICO score. That's FICO, and that stands for the Fair Isaac Corporation. They've had a monopoly on this credit rating score. It ranges from 350 to 800, right? I think most people have a score somewhere between 600 and 750. I actually don't know what the median is. But I think the cutoff is like 620 between sub and prime. Right. Sub prime. So, but there's a new kid on the block, and it's called the Vantage Score. And I guess the latest iteration of it is the Vantage Score 4.0. They had Vantage Score 1, nobody cared. 2, I guess less people cared. 3, they're kind of making waves. And 4, now Fannie and Freddie said, we'll accept the Vantage Score. And it's interesting, and it's kind of convoluted, or one could even say there's some collusion going on. I don't know. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. But, and correct me if I'm wrong, Peter. So FICO is the Fair Isaac Corporation. They sell the score to the lender. But how do they get the data? And the data comes from 3 organizations largely. It comes from Experian, TransUnion, and what's the other one? Equifax. Everybody knows Equifax because they had the big hack a few years back, and however many hundreds of millions of people had their wares out on the dark web, and Equifax had to come back and say, we're going to give you all free credit reporting. And that's part of the big reason why, if you open up your credit card app today, you used to have to pay to look at your credit score. You have to pull it, and it would cost you, I don't know, however many dollars, but you had to pay to see your credit score. And now it's basically free. Anybody can see it. Interestingly enough, so as Peter and I were farting around with the data, did you know that the price of FICO score pull has increased 650% since 2018. And that
Oh, I did
correlates,
not.
that increase actually correlates quite nicely with FICO's share price. Remember, they're a monopoly. You don't get the BICO score or the PICO score. It's always and forever, since the beginning of time, since modern history of the mortgage, it's been the FICO score, Fair Isaac Corporation. And so their monopolistic situation has caused their stock price to skyrocket. And in the last 7 years, the price of these credit scores of this report has skyrocketed. And I know you might think, okay, it used to be 60 cents. Now it's $4.50. Big whoop. How many people buy houses across the country? And that's, by the way, the score, the price that they sell to the lender. What do you think the lender resells it? What do you think they put on your Alta, on your HUD when you go to close? You're not paying $4.50. You might be paying $30, you might be paying $40, you might be paying $50, $60, and that's on every single real estate transaction. So I think it's a great thing that this competitor comes out. But the competitor, and just to make it even crazier, the competitor is a product by Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. So not only are they the data providers to FICO, so they're selling FICO data so that they can come up with a score, they said, wait a minute, we're going to make our own score. So now I guess it's a duopoly?
Yes. I mean, think of it this way. It's Zelle. Anybody who knows Venmo,
Great example.
Cash App, anything like that, well, all the banks got together and like, dude, why is this other company in the middle when we can be doing it? Because all the money's being transferred from our bank account into a different account in our bank, and we're not wetting our beak on it. So they went ahead and they created Zelle. It's the same scenario from my perspective, from a real simpleton perspective. I'm not really into the details of all this, but that's effectively what it is. So the industry version versus, let's say, the Consumer Reports version. I don't know if you remember Consumer Reports, but it was an entity basically you would come in there, you collect.
They're still around. I don't think they're heavily prolific anymore, but yeah.
But it's the same type of idea. Do you want an independent, or you want something that's a company town type of perspective? And that's basically what it comes down to.
You know what other industry did this was Hollywood did this. When YouTube was first getting started, everybody was reposting or cutting movie trailers and music videos and putting them up on YouTube, and they were making money on the ad revenue sharing with YouTube. And then all the music studios got together. I was like, wait a minute, we want to make the money off of our music videos. So they created Vevo, VEVO. And so Vevo is that joint venture between all of the record labels, so that when you go on YouTube and you search a music video, you see the industry official music video instead of Peter Zalewski's bootleg copy of the new Taylor Swift music video, which I'm sure you got a lot of those, right?
Oh, yeah. No, I'm a big Swiftie.
You pre-downloaded the album. It released last night at midnight. You know that, right? Big news.
I did not know that, but I didn't know what you said about the industry getting together and forming their own to compete with.
I mean, it's inevitable in any industry, really. Like I find it kind of amazing that it took the credit rating agencies to this long to get their crap together. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a tremendous business. FICO is incredibly profitable. I mean, they don't release an iPhone every year. Like they don't make anything. It's just taking data from here to here, doing a little formula, and then presenting it to the big lenders.
And they have the historical information, which I think is probably the utmost importance. If you can go all the way back for basically the lifetime of somebody, and or who knows, maybe it even gets to the family. Maybe it's they can take this data based on everything that's going on right now, especially with AI, but the way that they're mining data. They're putting it together. They're processing the data, the big data. It used to be big data. Now, what's after big data? Because it's taken the great
super big data.
Well, let me ask you a question. What about